we have put together a very special program for candidates straight across the greater Edmonton region and beyond, I suppose, depending on how far people want to travel to come and see us, right? We've put together a program called the Campaign War Room. And what we've been finding is that many organizations, in terms of, or elected officials rather, and their campaigns, are dabbling within the social web space, and they're doing some of the very basic things that we would expect elected officials and or candidates to do. However, we believe that there's a lot more that could be done. And I don't know the first thing about running for an elected office because I've never done that. And not only that, I don't also know the first thing about managing a campaign, which is why we've partnered with Lila, because Lila, you've got an extensive amount of experience in this space. Why don't you let folks know a little bit about your background and why maybe we're working together is a good idea.
For sure. Well, I've got 10 years experience plus, so it's actually probably around 12 years now, on 16 different campaigns running municipally, provincially, and federally. I tend to specialize in the federal, but I've done all three, and I've worked with all three parties as well as those independent candidates that run municipally. And, it's not just you, Walter, that doesn't have that experience with how to run a campaign. The average candidate's never run before. If they've run and they're running again, well, they lost the first time, so they could use a couple pointers.
That's a good point, right? Let's walk through those folks who are watching, who are maybe campaign managers or volunteers for a campaign, and they've seen the broadcast, so now they're maybe letting folks know. And they need to take some information back as to what the Campaign War Room is going to be all about. So why don't we tell the folks what that's going to be about?
Absolutely. It's going to be a partnership. So you're going to get the experience that I've got, which is on the campaign side of things. You're going to get the traditional media cycle. You're going to get the traditional campaign things like door knocking and that kind of thing, lawn signs. Everybody knows all those things. But you're going to get a strategy for those things. And then you're going to get Walter's expertise on social media. And I'll let Walter talk about those social media things.
So what we wanted to do was attack this issue from a cohesive perspective. It's one thing to get volunteers organized, get them rounded up and get them organized and heading out in the various directions that we need them to help out with. However, how does a campaign leverage technology better, more effectively? And so those are some of the things that we're going to start to tackle and actually provide the candidates and their campaign managers and so on with a precise plan of what to do. Pre-writ, for example, right? We walk them right through the entire process timeline, don't we?
Absolutely. And actually, all this time now is pre-writ because we have some standard elections in Alberta, so that's coming up October 2010. So you really should be on the bandwagon now, and this is a great start to how to do that. Just a little plug there, but really you will be getting some really strategic advice on how to plan your campaign. So I'm just going to ask you, I'm going to throw out a question there, Walter. If you were a candidate, you got 62,000 people in one ward in Alberta, let's say. That's the average, 62,000. Let's say you didn't get to door knock on 62,000 doors in 36 days. You didn't get to phone call all of them because, volunteers are a little limited. How on earth are you going to connect with your constituents?
Well, if you're a candidate and you haven't run before, right? I would assume that you want to make it as tough on me as possible,
Absolutely.
Right? So I'm a candidate who hasn't run before at all, and I haven't been able to get out and communicate with those folks. Then certainly the social web is a great advent, right? And learning about the times when, for example, many of these people are at home, stay-at-home moms, working moms and dads. Typically the dinner hour, past the dinner hour, people are going to be home. That's also typically the time when they're probably online on Facebook and other places, socializing and catching up from the day's activities. So we would look to probably, if I was the candidate, I would look to try to reach out to various pockets of people during those kinds of times. And then using specific social channels to reach out and communicate directly. So basically communicating to thousands of people at a time, as opposed to one door at a time for 5 to 10 seconds sometimes,
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
So not to knock door knocking, but there are other ways to generate attention, awareness, and getting the message across. So we would look to go to digital solutions to be more effective that way, and then probably look to enable our volunteer army in certain ways as well.
Absolutely.
To carry some of that load.
Absolutely, and that's the kind of things that you're going to get at the War Room. We're going to talk about, as you know, we're going to talk about how you're going to mobilize your volunteers, how you're going to go onto Facebook, and it's not just about having numbers. Anybody can set up a Facebook account. Anybody can set up a Twitter account. What do you do once you've done that? So you've got 400 followers. What does that really mean to your campaign? What Walter and I are going to talk about is how you really plug those people into the campaign, how you use them, how you get them really active in your campaign, how you can talk to 62,000 people at one time rather than, like Walter said, one door at a time. Not as effective.
Right. So let's tell the folks where we can go. Evan's going to put up on the bottom third of your screen there a web address as to where you can go to get more information, to even, in fact, register for the event. The dates that we have scheduled for the War Room are June 19th and June 26th. Both of those days are Saturdays. And we're going to run from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And, of course, we'll have a little break and some lunch in between. But we're going to be going pretty much the entire day. It's going to be an intensive workshop. You should definitely think about bringing folks from your campaign with you. We have a special price for the candidate plus 2 members from their campaign because we wanted to bring small tactical teams together if you could. That will help with the retention of all the information that we're going to supply you in one day, and it's going to be a lot. And I'm really looking forward to working with Lila on this. I think it's going to be fantastic, and I'm going to learn a ton about the campaign, the election, the politics side of things. And, you know, you've got a vast amount of experience from the 3 levels of government, so the federal, the provincial, and the municipal. So it's just a wealth of knowledge in one room for one day. And by the way, you know, we talked about this, about having more than one date. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't so much that we could sell more and put more people in the room and all this kind of thing, but we didn't really want to get caught in the situation where we had 2 opposing candidates be in the room and have to break out the boxing gloves. So we offered 2 different dates. Sure. And that way then if you know, we were opposing candidates, we wouldn't have to be in the same room at the same time, at the same day. So warroom.eventbrite.com is where we're sending you folks. If you have any more info or questions about the program, you can send an email to me directly, walter@fusedlogic.com. And Lila, do you want to offer your email address too?
Absolutely. It's a really funky name, so I'm going to spell it all out. It's LEILADAOUD @gmail.com. Lila Daoud, DAOUD. And I'm just going to add one more thing, Walter, if you don't mind.
No.
You know, the average campaign is spending upwards of $30,000 on their campaign. It's their first go-around. Why not come to the War Room, learn from some expertise, people who have done this time and time again. You've got Walter, who's an expert in social media. You've got me, I've got years of experience in campaigns. Come out, spend that 0.5% of your total expenditure, learn what you need to, and be successful. It's all about votes. Come find out how to get those votes.
You know what? I'll tell you what. I think that's absolutely fantastic points that you're making there, Lila. And, you know, I got to tell you, I would not want to be the candidate up against you after you had went through the War Room.
Oh, absolutely not.
Right? I don't even care if you're the incumbent, which is always better if you're the incumbent, right? Absolutely. You've got that momentum rolling in. But I honestly would not want to be the candidate in a particular ward or in a particular race when I was the odd man or woman out and didn't take in this information. Because I can tell you, you know, as you well know, and we've watched, you know, from a voter's perspective, right, on TV and whatnot. And by the way, this is a good time to mention that Fuse Logic TV is going to be a place to get really good election coverage because we're going to be covering it. So in a really unique and I think different way than probably the traditional ways. Not that we don't like our traditional friends, right? But we're going to have a little fun. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Lila, thank you so much for coming on the show. And we're going to take a quick break, folks. We're going to be back in about 60 seconds. And we're going to have our next set of guests on the show.